If fear did not exist in your mind, who would you already be? Fear has cost you more than time. It has cost you identity, potential, and peace. But today, that ends, so listen closely, because by the time this speech finishes, fear will no longer hold the same power over you. Not because it will disappear, but because you will have changed. You will have outgrown the version of yourself that used to listen to it. What you're about to hear is not motivation. It is transformation, if you have the courage to receive it. So I ask you this now before we begin. Do not skip a word. Do not drift. Because somewhere in these next moments lies the sentence that will cut the chain. And if you miss it, you may never know what you could have become. Now lean in, silence the world, and let this be the day you kill the fear. Let us speak plainly. Fear is not merely a feeling. It is the silent enemy of success. It is the hidden architect behind the failure of most men. And until it is exposed and destroyed, it will continue to direct the course of your life while you believe that it is fate. Understand this well. Fear is not danger. Danger is real. Danger requires caution. But fear is illusion. Fear is thought, cloaked in emotion. It wears the garments of reason and caution, yet it is born in falsehood and nurtured through repetition. And most men, unaware, build their entire lives in the shadow of this invisible master. A man will not rise because he is not strong, but because he is afraid. A man will not speak his truth, not because he lacks truth, but because fear has silenced his voice. A man will abandon his purpose, not because the purpose is too great, but because fear has convinced him he is too small. Let me remind you, every failure, every retreat, every broken ambition can be traced not to inability, but to fear left unchallenged. The enemy is not outside. It is within. It is your thought, when left undirected, undisciplined, and untrained. I have seen this enemy in the eyes of powerful men. Men with vast intellect, with boundless potential, yet paralyzed when a decision had to be made. Men who could speak of greatness but could not act toward it. Men who believed, but only in silence, never in motion. This enemy does not shout, it whispers, it says, wait. It says, what if you fail? It says, you are not yet ready. And in that moment, the mind obeys. The heart retreats. The destiny dies. Quietly, without a funeral. But not every man bowed to fear. There were those who saw fear for what it was and chose to act anyway. Let us take Andrew Carnegie, a man not born into fortune, but into poverty. A man who did not inherit power, but forged it through belief. Do you think he was free of fear? But he did not obey it. When others warned him of risk, of overreach, of failure, he pressed forward. He built steel when others doubted it would last. He hired men stronger than himself. And he did it all without waiting for the comfort of certainty, because he understood fear is the tool of a man's mental enemy, and it must be disarmed before fortune is permitted to enter. This enemy must not be reasoned with. It must not be studied and examined endlessly. It must be confronted, overwritten, starved of power. And the only weapon sharp enough to cut fear at the root is truth. The truth that you are not weak. The truth that failure does not define a man, but quitting does. The truth that you are the master of your mind, not its servant. And the truth that fear, though persistent, is not permanent. I ask you again, not as philosophy, but as a demand of your soul. Who would you already be if fear held no place in your thoughts? Let that vision burn in your imagination. Let it haunt your excuses. Let it mock your hesitation. And then choose. Choose to remove the mask of fear. Choose to stop confusing it with safety. Choose to see that fear is not protection. It is prison. You do not remove fear by avoiding it. You remove it by advancing in its presence. You do not kill it once. You kill it every day, with action, with repetition, with unrelenting thought discipline. And so I give you your first command. Name the fear, confront it, speak against it, and move, even if your knees shake. Fear is loudest before you act. Once you begin, it quiets. Once you continue, it weakens. And once you complete the work, it vanishes. You must stop asking when the fear will go and begin becoming the man who no longer listens when it speaks. Because that man, the man who moves without permission from fear, he is the one the world obeys. He is the one fortune follows, and he is the one you were born to become. Fear is not a force of nature. It is not lightning. It is not thunder. It does not fall from the sky or rise from the earth. It is planted in the mind, and like all seeds, it grows only when watered. Most men do not understand this. They believe fear is something that happens to them, as if it were outside their control. But let me say this with absolute clarity. Fear is thought, nothing more, and thought is under your command. Fear begins as a whisper, a single sentence, a flicker in the imagination. What if I fail? What if I lose everything? What will they say? And that whisper, if allowed to linger, takes root. Repeat it often enough, feed it with emotion, and it becomes belief. You begin to believe that failure is likely. You begin to believe that rejection is inevitable. You begin to believe that what you imagine is more real than what you desire. And once a man believes in fear more than he believes in himself, he is no longer moving through life. He is reacting to it. He becomes a servant to shadows. This is why I have taught for decades that the subconscious mind must be guarded like a treasury, because it accepts whatever you repeat, whether it is truth or terror, whether it lifts you or destroys you. The subconscious cannot argue. It cannot filter. It cannot say, this is irrational, ignore it. It simply receives what is spoken with repetition and emotion and makes it real. That is how fear is installed. You do not become afraid of life. You become afraid of your thoughts about life. You are not afraid of what is. You are afraid of what might be. And the tragedy is this. Most of what you fear never happens, but you suffer it as if it did, over and over again, in the realm of imagination. This is why the mind must be governed. This is why thought must be chosen. This is why you must install new beliefs with intention, or the world and your old self will install old fears by default. Now let me take you into history, and let us observe a man who lived this principle with fire, Thomas Edison. He is remembered for inventing the electric light. But what few remember is that it took him over 10,000 failed attempts to get it right. 10,000. A lesser man would have quit by the 10th. A weaker man would have concluded that failure was final. But Edison never feared failure because he never believed in it. He was not interested in what might go wrong. He was consumed by what he had decided would become reality. He said, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. What power would you possess if you no longer saw failure as an enemy, but merely as a stepping stone? What would you pursue if fear no longer held space in your imagination? The answer to these questions is found not in your emotions, but in your thoughts. You must learn to think differently. You must train your subconscious like a garden, pulling out weeds before they grow into walls. The great Henry Ford was mocked for his ideas, told they were foolish, called an uneducated dreamer. He wanted to build a car for the common man, one that was simple, powerful, and affordable. The experts said it could not be done. The critics laughed, and yet he built it anyway. He faced fear, ridicule, and doubt, but he did not plant them in his mind. He knew a secret most never understand. The mind, when directed, does not obey fear. It obeys decision. He refused to entertain the fear of being wrong. He refused to install hesitation in his belief system. Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. That was Henry Ford's creed, and it is a principle eternal. What you think becomes. What you repeat becomes identity. What you emotionally believe becomes fact in your subconscious, even before it becomes visible in your results. So I ask you again, What thoughts are you allowing to take root? If they are not thoughts of power, then they are thoughts of fear. There is no neutrality in the mind. Every thought moves you closer to power, or pulls you deeper into paralysis. Let us not complicate this. Your thoughts either build your future or break it. Your imagination either serves your vision or sabotages it. And your repetition either strengthens belief or fear. This is why you must not wait to feel fearless. You must train yourself to act in fear's presence. By thinking thoughts it cannot coexist with. I move in the presence of fear. It does not dictate my movement. Repeat that aloud. Say it again until it feels like truth. Now write it down. Place it where your eyes must meet it daily. Let it become the sword that slices hesitation in half. Fear grows in silence. Fear survives in passivity. But fear cannot stand in the presence of a man who speaks power, who thinks deliberately, and who acts without permission from his emotions. Let us end with this. Fear is not external. It is not the world. It is not your circumstances. It is a mental habit, and all habits can be broken. You must decide, here and now, that fear no longer gets to live in your imagination. You must decide that your thoughts are your own, and you will train them until they obey. Because the man who commands his thoughts, he commands his destiny, and fear cannot touch a destiny that has already been claimed. Every man born into this world enters with two primal fears, the fear of falling and the fear of loud noise. All others are learned. They are installed. They are not part of your divine blueprint. They are borrowed, absorbed, taught, and repeated until they feel like identity. But make no mistake, no man is born afraid. He is trained to be. And if fear can be trained into you, it can be trained out. That is the focus of this lesson. There are 6 fundamental fears that rule the lives of most men. They appear in disguise. They wear masks. But underneath, they are always one of these 6. You will recognize them because they have likely visited you. But after today, they will no longer be allowed to stay. Let us examine each one in full with the torch of truth. 1. Fear of poverty. This is the root of all fear in modern man. It is the dread of loss, the anticipation of insufficiency, the terror of being without. But understand this, poverty is not first a condition. It is first a state of mind. You may have seen men with modest means who walk with great strength. You may have seen men of great riches who live in total fear. This is because poverty is not in the bank account. It is in the thought. It is in the constant worrying over bills, in the habit of saying, I can't afford it, in the mental rehearsing of failure before it happens. And the fear of poverty is powerful. It causes men to stay in jobs they hate. It causes artists to hide their gift. It causes entrepreneurs to self-sabotage. It causes the strong to become sheep and the talented to settle. Andrew Carnegie once told me, a man governed by the fear of poverty is a man already poor. Let me share a secret. When I began my work on Think and Grow Rich, I was not wealthy. I was not backed by abundance. In fact, I wrote many chapters in the face of mounting debt, dwindling hope, and a family who wondered whether I had lost my mind. But what I discovered was this: wealth comes after the fear of poverty is destroyed, not before. How do you destroy this fear? You stop speaking of lack. You stop rehearsing the worst. You start declaring that abundance is created by thought and thought alone. You give value before you ask for it. And you install the belief that money obeys the clear, focused, definite mind. Edison did not begin rich. Ford did not begin rich. Carnegie did not begin rich. They began thinking richly. That is where wealth begins, and that is where the fear of poverty is defeated. 2. Fear of criticism. This fear has destroyed more dreams than failure ever did. Men will not act because they fear what others will say. They fear laughter, opinion, mockery, rejection. But here is a truth that must be engraved into your mind. No man ever changed the world who was afraid of being misunderstood. Every leader you admire was once criticized by those with smaller minds. Lincoln was ridiculed for his voice. Ford was mocked for his obsession with simplicity. Carnegie was attacked for building an empire from nothing. Even I, in my work on this very philosophy, faced attacks from the press, silence from peers, and ridicule from scholars. Yet I continued. Because when the voice within grows louder than the voices without, a man becomes invincible. You must decide, will you obey your vision or the opinion of those who do not share it? Will you allow the laughter of cowards to drown the roar of your mission? Understand this. Criticism is often a sign that you're on the edge of greatness. Most critics are not creators. They are watchers. Do not let watchers determine your destiny. 3. Fear of ill health. This fear often hides itself as concern. It is the constant checking of symptoms, the belief that something is always wrong, the obsession with death in the form of disease, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Let me be clear. The mind governs the body. What is feared long enough is eventually welcomed by the subconscious. Men who speak of sickness often become sick. Men who believe their bodies are weak perform weakly. This is not to say that health is unimportant. On the contrary, health is a man's true wealth. But worrying about it does not protect it. Instead, speak of strength. Imagine vitality. Install belief in the body's ability to heal. Practice healthy habits and speak of health constantly. Henry Ford worked long hours into his later years. Edison remained vibrant into old age. They did not allow fear of illness to dominate their thinking, because a mind that fears the body is a mind that weakens it. 4. Fear of loss of love. This is perhaps the most delicate fear. It shows up in jealousy, in control, in insecurity, in emotional outbursts. It is the belief that you are not enough. It is the belief that others must be controlled to feel safe. It is the fear of abandonment that causes men to act unworthy of love. But let me say what few will. Love is not kept by fear. It is destroyed by it. Men fear rejection, and so they reject themselves. They fear betrayal, and so they become bitter. They fear loss, and so they chase what cannot be owned. If you desire love, become lovable. If you fear its loss, become secure in its presence. No one who truly knows their worth must cling to affection. And more importantly, fear of loss invites loss. Love that is held in the grip of fear will always find a way to escape. Release the fear. Trust your worth. Let love be given and received freely, or not at all. 5. Fear of old age. This fear is rising in the modern world. It begins with gray hair. It ends in helplessness. But the truth is, age does not weaken a man. Thinking does. I have seen men of 70 more vibrant than men of 25. And I have seen youth wasted on men who already believe they are too late. Age is a number. It is a page in the calendar. It has no bearing on spirit unless you give it one. Some of the greatest fortunes in history were made later in life. Carnegie did not truly begin until his mid-30s. Edison's greatest inventions came after 40. Colonel Sanders was well past 60 when he created his empire. Why? Because the mind, when focused, has no expiration date. You are not late. You are not behind. You are right on time, the moment you decide to be. Do not fear the passing of years. Fear the passing of opportunity because you assumed you were too old to act. 6. Fear of death, the final fear, and the most powerful. This is the fear that silences men before they speak, that stops action, that makes men cling to safety, routine, and smallness. But let us be clear, death is not the enemy. Fear of it is. The man who fears death fears life. He tiptoes through existence. He avoids risk, challenge, purpose, and dies long before he is buried. Lincoln once said, "It is not the years in your life that count, it is the life in your years." When I wrote of the invisible counselors in my own mind, Lincoln, Ford, Carnegie, I was reminding myself that though their bodies are gone, Their minds live on, and so will yours if you live with courage. You are not here to survive. You are here to leave something behind. You cannot cheat death, but you can defy it by living so well, so boldly, that even when it comes, it arrives too late to rob you of your greatness. Final command: destroy the roots daily. These fears will not vanish in a day. They will return, they will disguise themselves, they will pretend to be logic, caution, and reason. But you now see them, and what is seen can be slain. Every day repeat these truths. I do not fear poverty, I create abundance. I do not fear criticism, I obey my vision. I do not fear illness, I speak health into my body. I do not fear loss of love, I am complete in myself. I do not fear aging, I rise stronger each year. I do not fear death, I live fully now. Install these lines like rails on which your thoughts must run, because repetition is reprogramming, and the man who repeats power becomes power. The ghosts of fear will haunt you only as long as you allow them, but the moment you begin to speak back, the moment you begin to move anyway, the moment you repeat the truth louder than the lie, the ghosts are cast out, and the man who was once ruled by fear becomes the man fear cannot recognize. Let us move forward. The subconscious will believe what is repeated with feeling, no matter if it is truth or terror. My friend, let us speak plainly now, for what I am about to reveal is no small idea. It is the pivot point between a life ruled by fear and a life constructed by vision. This is not theory. This is law. Your subconscious mind is your silent master. It does not argue. It does not question. It does not analyze, criticize, or negotiate. It accepts and it installs. Like fertile soil, it will grow whatever you plant: roses or weeds, riches or ruin, courage or fear. And what plants the seed? Repetition, not once, not casually, but daily, emotionally, repeatedly, until belief becomes identity. Now consider this. If a man allows fearful thoughts to linger long enough, with emotions strong enough, those thoughts become beliefs. And those beliefs, even if false, will govern his behavior, his habits, his fate. This is how fear becomes installed. This is how a man becomes a slave, not to his circumstances, but to his inner conversation. And this is where autosuggestion comes in. It is the antidote. It is the sword. It is the method by which you seize back the reins from fear and install new truth, truth that serves you. You see, autosuggestion is not merely affirming something out loud. It is instructing the subconscious mind with emotionalized belief over and over until it becomes the new root thought. And what is planted in the root inevitably shows up in the fruit. If you say, I am unworthy, even silently, day after day, your subconscious will bow to your command. It will begin filtering your opportunities, sabotaging your efforts, shrinking your world. It will obey. But if you say with fire and decision, I am courageous, I act in the presence of fear, I am destined for greatness, and you say it daily with emotion, the subconscious will also obey. You see the power, don't you? Now allow me to illustrate. Andrew Carnegie, whose name is etched in the steel backbone of America's wealth, understood this principle long before most could pronounce it. He built his fortune not merely with iron, but with invisible architecture, belief installed through suggestion. He taught his men to speak their aims aloud. He told Charles Schwab, the young steel magnate, to stand each morning and declare his objective with certainty, even when results had not yet appeared. I am the most valuable man in Carnegie Steel. I am the one who will build what no man has built. I will not hesitate, I will dominate. And he did. You see, Carnegie knew something that most industrialists ignored. The mind is the factory before the factory. It produces the outcomes long before the physical world catches up. And it is shaped by what it hears, especially when spoken with conviction. If belief can be installed through repetition, so can fear. But fear speaks quietly. It whispers. It repeats itself in shadows. You can't. You'll fail. They'll laugh. You're not enough. And what happens? The subconscious accepts these whispers as commands. It does not evaluate them. It merely records them and begins building a life that aligns. And this is where most men fail. They believe the whisper more than their vision. They repeat hesitation more than direction. And the mind, being loyal but not wise, obeys whichever is louder. If you wish to eradicate fear, you must speak a new command every morning, every night. You must interrupt the old script and declare the new one again and again until the old voice starves from lack of repetition. This is not motivational fluff. This is a neurological reality. The subconscious is reprogrammed by frequency and emotion. If you wish to remove the virus of fear, you must install a new operating system, word by word, day by day. Do this without fail. Write your new belief, not as a wish, as a decision. Example, I do not obey fear, I act even when I do not feel ready. Speak it aloud, morning and night. Emotion is essential. Speak it like your life depends on it, because it does. Repeat during resistance, especially when you feel fear. That is when the subconscious is listening most. Visualize it as you speak. See the version of you who lives this truth. Feel it in your spine. Never speak fear aloud again. Starve it. Do not give it life through language. Fear is not removed by waiting. It is removed by speaking until it cannot remain. You must understand, what you speak, you become, and what you repeat, you install. So do not ask, how do I get rid of fear? Ask instead, what must I repeat until fear no longer has a place to live? Carnegie repeated courage. Edison repeated certainty. Ford repeated vision. Lincoln repeated resolve. And the result? Fear had no place to lodge, because faith was louder and more often. The subconscious will believe anything if it is repeated with enough feeling. Do not let fear write the script. Pick up the pen. Faith is the only known antidote to fear. And it is not superstition. It is power, refined, directed, and trained. Now that you understand how fear takes root, silently, repetitively, and emotionally, it is time to forge the weapon that deflects it at every approach. That weapon is faith, not blind belief, not religious platitude, but mental certainty, the kind that grows not from outside evidence, but from inner command. It is built, not born. It is trained, not gifted. And once developed, it becomes the shield through which no fear can penetrate. Let us be clear. Faith and fear cannot coexist. When faith is present in the mind, fear dissolves. Not because danger is gone, but because the inner man refuses to bow. Let me show you how this works, and why most men never touch it. Faith is a mental state, not a feeling. You do not feel your way into faith. You train your way into it. Just as you do not feel strong before lifting a heavy weight, you lift the weight, and strength comes afterward. Likewise, faith is a conscious decision to plant new certainty in the mind until it becomes the only reality the subconscious recognizes. This is why auto-suggestion is critical. Every declaration, every repetition, every moment of belief spoken aloud, these are the bricks with which faith is built. If you wait for proof before you believe, you will never move. You must believe first, and the world will bend in response. Let us look again to Charles M. Schwab, one of Carnegie's most trusted men. He began with nothing, no wealth, no name, no reputation. But what he did possess was conviction. He walked, spoke, and acted as if greatness was already assigned to him. And because of this faith, because he behaved as though it were already done, he was treated accordingly. His mind, having already accepted the outcome, pulled opportunity toward him like iron filings to a magnet. Carnegie observed Schwab's certainty and said, "This is a man I can build a future with." Not because of talent alone, but because faith is magnetic. It attracts support, it deflects resistance, and it commands respect. without needing to demand it. Understand this. Schwab's mind did not waver. His certainty was not circumstantial, and that is why he rose faster than men twice his age with twice his credentials. He had made faith his foundation. Fear can only exist where faith is absent. You cannot remove fear by fighting it directly. You remove it by building a stronger occupant in the same space. Where light is present, darkness must flee. Where faith is installed, fear evaporates. So if you wish to become fearless, you must first become faithful. And you do this by linking every thought, every action, and every desire to something larger, to something beyond yourself. Every time you act in alignment with a vision greater than comfort, faith expands. Every time you move through uncertainty with discipline, faith strengthens. And every time you repeat a truth until your subconscious bows to it, fear loses its grip. Try this now. Choose one goal that stretches you. Declare it aloud. This is what I will do. Then speak why. Because I was not born to drift. I was born to direct. Attach every action to this belief. Tie every movement to this purpose. The brain is not moved by logic. It is moved by emotion, clarity, and mission. The moment you begin acting as if your aim is certain, faith activates. And the more you act in that alignment, the less room fear has to survive. Faith does not eliminate the presence of fear. It eliminates its authority. It is not about becoming unafraid. It is about becoming immune to fear's seduction. That is the power of trained belief. That is the armor. And the key is this: you must choose it daily. You must install it repeatedly. You must speak it emotionally until your subconscious begins to expect victory the way it once expected doubt. Carnegie did this, Edison did this, Ford did this. They spoke vision until vision became fact in the world and in their bones. You must do the same. Speak these aloud, not as empty lines, but as commands. I believe before the evidence appears. I act in faith, not in fear. I do not wait to feel strong. I act, and strength follows. My destiny is certain, and my steps are loyal to it. What I speak with conviction becomes reality. Repeat them morning and night. In times of fear, repeat them again. Not as ritual, as reprogramming. You are not weak. You are not doubting. You are simply untrained. Begin the training. Let faith become your new nature. Faith, when properly cultivated, forms the shield. But it is action that becomes the sword, the sharp edge that slices through the fog of fear, hesitation, and paralysis. For while belief is the internal condition, it is movement that makes that belief visible. No man becomes great through certainty alone. He must act on that certainty. He must advance even when the ground trembles beneath him. He must move even when his knees shake. Because every inch he gains through action, fear loses forever. The greatest deception of fear is that it tells a man to wait. Wait until the fear passes. Wait until the timing feels right. Wait until he is ready. But fear, like a shadow, does not dissolve by delay. It dissolves when the light of action strikes it directly. You must understand this now. The man who waits for fear to subside before he moves will never move. He will sit in endless delay, decorating his prison with excuses, mistaking hesitation for wisdom, mistaking stillness for strategy. No empire was built by the timid. No revolution was led by the comfortable. The men who made history moved while afraid. They did not wait for the fear to disappear. They acted in its presence, and in so doing, stripped it of its voice. When Abraham Lincoln took the reins of a broken nation, the fear was overwhelming from every side. Betrayal, war, collapse. Every step into leadership was a step into uncertainty. But he moved, he decided, he spoke, and because he acted, he transformed. Lincoln's greatness was not in the absence of doubt, but in the dominance of decision. He rose each morning and did the work required, not because fear had vanished, but because purpose spoke louder. That is the principle. Action silences emotion. Where there is movement, fear cannot multiply. The mind becomes occupied. The blood flows. Certainty builds not from waiting, but from momentum. And this is not philosophy. This is neurology. The human nervous system is shaped by what it experiences. Each time you act while afraid, you rewrite your conditioning. You teach your body that fear is not fatal. You train your subconscious that forward motion is the default, regardless of the weather within. Let me give you a practice. It is simple, but it will change your life if done faithfully. Every single day, do one thing that frightens you. It may be small, it may be uncomfortable, but do it. Do not allow the nervous voice in your head to be the final vote. Overrule it. Move anyway. The man who does this consistently becomes unshakable. Not because he never feels fear, but because fear loses its control over his motion. He becomes the commander again, not the captive. Each small act of bravery becomes a stone in the fortress of courage. When Henry Ford faced complete financial ruin, when his engineers told him that his engine design was impossible, when the industry mocked his vision, he acted anyway. He signed the orders. He pushed forward. He moved. And it was that movement, that defiance, that certainty in motion that broke the resistance of reality and shaped it to match his will. Fear, you see, feeds on stillness. It grows in delay. The longer you wait, the heavier it becomes. But the moment you act, it begins to wither. Action is not merely what you do. Action is who you become through repetition. Every time you walk through fear, you become the man on the other side of it. And with time, the old self fades. The hesitant man, the doubtful mind, the weak identity. They are replaced by a force that no longer negotiates with fear, but uses it as confirmation that the path matters. Because here is the deeper truth. Fear points toward purpose. You are not afraid of what does not matter. You are afraid of what might change you, what might expose your weakness, what might elevate your name, what might stretch you beyond who you've been. And that is why action is not simply movement. It is a declaration of readiness to become the man you were designed to be. So train your mind to respond to fear with movement, not because it feels good, but because it builds good. Discipline yourself to make the call, to say the words, to write the message, to build the product, to share the truth, to take the risk, even as fear tries to hold you. Especially then, that is the sword, that is the fire, that is the separation between those who think and those who build. Say this aloud every morning. Today, I act before fear speaks. I move before doubt debates. I train my body to obey my vision, not my emotion. Let those words become your trigger. Let them rewire the moment fear begins whispering. Because if you do this daily, if you train like this over time, there will come a day when fear tries to rise, and your body moves before your mind even notices it. That is mastery. And I tell you now, as plainly as I can, this world was not built by thinkers alone. It was built by movers, builders, deciders. The men who made steel, who lit the world, who led revolutions, they were all afraid, but they chose motion, and that made them kings. Fear will still visit you, but the man of action is never home when fear knocks. He is out building the future, one brave motion at a time. A man who leaves an escape will run toward it. That is the nature of the mind. When pressure rises and the path narrows, he will not hold the line. He will retreat to the comfort he kept alive, just in case. And let me tell you now, no man can build a towering success while dragging behind him the burden of a backup plan. Great success does not come to those who keep one foot in safety and the other in ambition. It comes to those who burn the bridge behind them, not as an act of recklessness, but as a declaration of certainty. Certainty, you see, is not something you find. It is something you forge. It is born the moment you say, there is no other way but forward. If you trace the stories of the great builders of industry, you will find this moment in all of them, the point of no return. the moment when the man stepped so fully into his vision that he made quitting impossible. And no example is more vivid than that of Henry Ford, a man who embodied finality and decision. When Ford committed to the production of the Model T, he eliminated the option of turning back. He did not test the waters. He did not poll the public. He invested everything. He bet the future on a single idea, that the common man could own an automobile. And when his engineers told him the V8 engine was a fantasy, that the design was impossible, that they had failed, he said, "Build it anyway." Not because he had proof it would work, but because he had removed the luxury of doubt. He had no retreat. That is the power of burning the bridge. It forces the mind to solve. It forces the spirit to rise. It calls forth energies you did not know you had, because the only direction left is forward. Comfort is gone. Excuse is gone. Delay is gone. What remains is commitment, and commitment is the birthplace of power. I have seen men with great potential destroy their own destiny because they kept too many doors open. They wanted to chase greatness while keeping mediocrity within arm's reach. They whispered of ambition while clutching the safety of fallback options. And so their minds stayed divided, their energy split, their will weakened, and life does not reward the divided. You must decide what you are here to build. And once you decide, you must declare it. Write it, speak it, and then do the most important part. Eliminate every other option. Destroy the distractions. Burn the excuses. Remove the exits. Make retreats so unthinkable that your only remaining instinct is forward. This is not recklessness. This is spiritual engineering. You are restructuring your environment, your identity, and your future to align with a single outcome, the outcome of victory. The man who knows he must win finds ways others never see. The man who has no plan B develops a hunger that those with a safety net will never taste. And here is where most men falter. They say they are committed, but they keep a job they hate just in case. They say they will build the dream, but they refuse to risk reputation, time, or pride. They say they want freedom, but they tether themselves to approval, to routine, to the familiar. And so their dream stays trapped because they've given it no room to grow. You must understand this. The mind thrives under pressure. It becomes brilliant when the need becomes urgent. It becomes creative when the outcome is required, but it only steps into this dimension of intelligence when necessity is present, and necessity only arrives when retreat is removed. Think of the great armies who have won battles not through numbers, but through resolve. History is rich with accounts of generals who, upon landing on enemy shores, ordered the burning of their own ships. Why? So that their soldiers would fight with the fury of men who must win or die. That is what it means to burn the bridge. If you wish to know the next level of power, the next tier of certainty, the next depth of belief, then you must make this move. Declare your goal publicly. Remove your safety crutches. Walk away from the distractions disguised as options. And then work like your life depends on it, because in some way it does. The old self will scream when you do this. It will whisper lies of caution. It will beg you to return to the shore. But the moment you ignore that voice and step forward without retreat, something ancient inside you awakens. The part of you built for leadership, for legacy, for fire. Say this aloud and mean it. There is no way back. I do not return. I rise because forward is the only path. And let those words become the boundary line between the man you were and the man who can no longer be stopped. You were never meant to linger in hesitation. You were not built to hover at the threshold of your purpose. You were built to move decisively, permanently, boldly. So make the vow, set the flame to every bridge behind you, and move like a man who cannot be rescued, because now you are the rescue. Shall we continue? A man becomes in time a reflection of the climate in which he resides. His habits are not merely born of his will, but shaped, refined, and either strengthened or weakened by the company he keeps and the ideas he allows to circulate in his presence. You may think fear is a private burden, but let me tell you, fear is often a social disease, spread silently through conversation, absorbed through tone, and passed between men as casually as a handshake. Who you surround yourself with dictates the weather inside your mind. If you walk daily among the timid, the indecisive, the comfortable, you will begin to view hesitation as wisdom and surrender as prudence. Not because you meant to adopt their ways, but because you breathed the same mental air. Ideas are contagious, beliefs are transferred, fear multiplies in the company of the fearful. The wrong voices fertilize fear. They do not shout it, they whisper it. They do not command you to quit. They merely plant doubt in clever disguise. Are you sure this is realistic? What if you fail? Don't you think you should wait? They think they are being helpful. They call it concern, caution, care. But underneath their words is a message more dangerous than any overt criticism. They are trying to lower your standards so they do not have to raise theirs. This is why I say, without apology, you must audit your environment with the same intensity you use to audit your thoughts. Because if you do not, the doubts of others will slip past your defenses and become your own. They will enter your mind through repetition and familiarity until you begin to believe they are yours. Carnegie understood this better than most. He did not surround himself with average men. He hand-selected a circle of minds, men who were builders, creators, warriors of thought. He called it his mastermind, not for ego, but for alignment. These men were chosen not because they agreed with him, but because they believed in the impossible with the same fervor he did. They did not pity. They did not discourage. They did not dilute vision. They amplified it. And from this environment emerged giants, none more notable than Charles Schwab, a man who rose from humble beginnings to become the president of the most powerful steel company on earth. Why? Because Carnegie placed him in the atmosphere of belief. He was not merely trained in business, he was immersed in conviction. Every meeting, every decision, every conversation reinforced a single message: we are not limited. That is what the right environment does. It speaks the language of your future. It challenges your doubt before it speaks. It makes hesitation feel unnatural. It is not always comfortable, but it is always constructive. You must seek this kind of atmosphere, and when you find it, protect it as if your mind depends on it, because it does. Now, you must ask yourself the hard question: who in your life makes you doubt? Who in your circle normalizes fear, procrastination, or drift? Who reacts to your ambition with concern instead of fire? Do not hate these men, but do not permit them power over your thinking. Their presence in your life must either be elevated or eliminated. This is not cruelty. It is necessity. If you wish to rise, you must surround yourself with those who expect it. You must speak daily with men who remind you of your identity, not those who poke holes in it. You must share your plans only with those who have shown they know what to do with belief. And let me say this plainly: do not share dreams with drifters. A drifter will take your vision and water it down until it drowns. He does not mean to harm you, but his lack of purpose is poison to yours. He lives in mental fog, and when he sees your clarity, it reminds him of his own hesitation. And so, to silence his discomfort, he questions your direction. You must become ruthless in your selection of mental company. Even a single voice of doubt, repeated often enough, can pull you back into fear. But a room filled with belief, spoken with passion, can reprogram your subconscious faster than any book, any lesson, any solitary ritual. Why? Because the subconscious listens most intently to what it hears consistently. And the voices around you speak into your mind more often than you realize. Build a mental fortress. Invite only the builders. only those who raise the standard, only those who speak life, not limit. And when you find such men, do not treat them casually. Cultivate those relationships like a garden. Speak your desires aloud. Reinforce each other's beliefs. Hold one another to the standard of unshakable execution. Let me leave you with this law. A man's vision grows or dies based on the soil in which he plants it. The soil is your environment. Make it rich with purpose, fertilized by faith, and kept free of the weeds of doubt. And if ever you wonder whether your environment is right, listen not to what the people say, but to how you think when you're around them. The mind knows, the spirit knows. Surround yourself with belief, and fear has no place to grow. Surround yourself with drift, and fear will take root before you even notice. Choose wisely. Let us continue. A man does not rise because he fights fear. He rises because he outgrows it. Let us be clear from the start. This part of your journey is not about overcoming fear as if it were a mountain to climb. It is about becoming someone that fear can no longer identify. Fear recognizes the old you, the hesitant one, the one who needed permission, the one who waited for the right time. But it cannot recognize the man who no longer plays the same role, the man who rewrites his nature. You are not here to manage fear. You are here to transform the identity that invited it. This truth is not spoken loudly in the world. Men are told to cope with fear, to manage it, to take deep breaths and hope it subsides. But that is not the language of transformation. That is the language of maintenance, and you were not born to maintain. You were born to rebuild from the mind out. The most powerful force in the world is identity. It is the root of all action. You will not behave beyond who you believe yourself to be. That is why affirmations alone are not enough, unless they are tied to identity. The mind does not obey vague encouragement. It obeys repeated emotional identity statements. What you repeat as identity becomes reality, not eventually, but automatically. So if you wish to be free of fear, you must stop negotiating with it and start evolving away from it. Say this now, aloud, with force. I do not move as the man I was. I move as the man I am becoming. The man you were made fear feel at home, but the man you are becoming speaks a language fear does not understand. He thinks differently. He acts decisively. He does not seek permission. He does not run simulations of doubt. He moves. Let me give you a vision. Close your eyes and see the man you are choosing to become. See yourself surrounded by abundance, not just in gold, but in vitality, in confidence, in clarity. See your body strong, your posture upright, your speech measured and certain. See the eyes of others when they meet yours, no longer confused or dismissive, but intrigued, because they feel something in your presence. You know who you are. See yourself walking into a room with no trace of hesitation. You don't need to dominate with volume. Your identity speaks louder than your voice ever could. You have already decided. You have already become. You have nothing to prove, only results to produce. Visualize wealth, not as greed, but as power accurately directed. Visualize health, not merely physical, but mental clarity, emotional precision, and the stamina to rise daily. Visualize prosperity, not as extravagance, but as overflow, born of service and alignment. And now feel this. The man who lives like this does not negotiate with fear. He thanks it for the signal and then moves anyway, because his actions are not dictated by emotion, but by identity. Let me tell you of a man who lived this way, Henry Ford. There were many who doubted him, bankers, engineers, the press. Even his own inner circle questioned his dream of producing a low-cost automobile for the masses. But Ford did not react to their doubt because their voices could not reach him. Not because he was arrogant, but because his identity had no space left for fear. He had already become the man who would change the way the world moved. The rest of the world simply had to catch up. That is the secret. You do not wait for your outer world to reflect your inner belief. You become first in thought, in visualization, in repetition, in how you walk and speak and decide. And then the world reshapes itself around you. This is not magic, it is law. The man who commands his identity commands his future. And let me remind you of something important. You do not earn the right to become this man through pain alone. You earn it through daily rehearsal of identity. Every time you say, I do not act like I used to act. I do not delay like I used to delay. I do not think as the fearful man once thought. You install a new self. You are training your mind to follow a new blueprint. A blueprint of strength, clarity, power. And that new blueprint does not include fear as its engineer. That blueprint is signed by the future you, the one who already walks boldly, already decides swiftly, already radiates conviction. So begin the ritual today. Do not wait. Create your declaration of identity. Write it. Speak it aloud morning and night. Burn it into your nervous system through emotional repetition. And most importantly, act in accordance with it, even before you feel like it fits, because the action makes it fit. Every act is a vote for the identity you're building. Every repetition is a brick in the new mental structure. Every declaration said with fire is a nail in the coffin of the old self. Let me leave you with this command. Become the one fear cannot recognize, because when fear comes knocking, and it will, it should not find the old you. It should not find the hesitant voice, the weak self-talk, the broken posture. It should not find a man waiting. It should find the door already closed. And behind that door, a man too busy becoming to be bothered by doubt. Let us move forward. You will not defeat fear in one act. You will not bury it with a single brave moment or silence it with a single affirmation. No, fear is persistent, and so your power must be more persistent still. Understand this deeply. Fear does not die. It retreats, and then it returns. It waits for you to grow tired. It waits for you to forget. It waits for you to fall back into the arms of the man you used to be. But if you meet it with daily decision, if you rise each morning with a ritual of strength, with words sharper than doubt, with movement before permission, then fear becomes too slow to catch you. The man who becomes powerful is not the man who acts once. It is the man who acts repeatedly, not because he feels ready, but because he has decided to be. The man who repeats power becomes power, not in theory, in action, in posture, in life. So you must return to these truths not once, but daily. You must study them the way a blacksmith studies fire. You must rehearse them the way a warrior sharpens his blade, because the enemy is not out there. It is in here, and it has memorized your old habits. Every day you delay, the old self tightens its grip. Every day you speak passively, the old voice returns louder. But every day you choose, with clarity, with fire, with command, the old self grows smaller, weaker, more distant. You want transformation? Then return. Return to these words. Speak them aloud. Memorize them. Live them. Let them become the very way your mind breathes. The man who lives in power does not visit it. He dwells in it. It is the ground beneath his feet, the blood in his chest, the command in his voice. You will not conquer fear tomorrow. You will conquer it in the next breath, by decision, and then again the next breath, and the next. Because fear is not one mountain. It is 1,000 tiny exits from the path. And the man who does not rise daily will find himself drifting back into the shadows. But you are not made to drift. You are not made to bow. You are made to roar, and when fear becomes only a whisper, it is because your identity has grown too loud to ignore. So rise, repeat, rebuild, return again tomorrow, not for inspiration, not for hype, but to remind yourself who you are. This is the man who lives beyond fear. He decides, he repeats, he acts. He does not hope to become strong, and he trains until he is. Now speak this aloud, not as poetry, but as truth. I do not wait for fear to leave. I rise while it stays. I do not fight the old self. I outgrow it with every action. I do not speak weakness. I speak identity. Because the man who chooses in the next breath is the man who becomes in the next moment. Let this be your rhythm. Let this be your rise. Let this be the day the old self dies. And the new you, the one fear cannot recognize, walks forward without apology, without retreat, without permission, forward, now.